Elon Musk dropped the first big Epstein bombshell, and it looks like he is going to be responsible for the latest and the next, and potentially many more down the road. Because if Doge was successful at one thing, it was causing problems. And now, it's causing problems for Donald Trump. This latest Epstein development, it's pretty interesting, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, I think it is important that we start with the failed attempts of this Epstein cover-up before we get to the latest way that Elon has screwed something up and in effect is leaking Epstein files. And it starts with Jen Psaki describing this criminal cover-up, this corrupt cover-up, and this idiotic cover-up.
Today, we got yet another document dump in the ongoing release of the Epstein files, and a few things remain true. And we've gone through, our amazing team here at MS Now has gone through a lot of this as much as they can. I mean, one, despite a legal requirement based on a law that was passed, again, remember this, with near unanimous support to release all the relevant documents by last Friday, only a fraction of that material is available as of yet, even after the news dump today. Two, the Justice Department continues to redact vast swaths of information, and in many cases, those redactions don't seem to have logical explanations, really at all, and we'll talk about that. But despite all of that, this batch probably, of the batches, had the most new information about Jeffrey Epstein, his criminal enterprise, and the many attempts to hold him accountable. Now, perhaps the biggest bombshell in today's dump of files is this July 2019 email exchange between DOJ officials, suggesting that investigators were looking at 10 potential Epstein co-conspirators at the time. That's obviously huge news, since to this day, only one Epstein co-conspirator has ever been charged in the case, and that's, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell. But in this email exchange, the names of most of those suspected co-conspirators are redacted. And it's really not clear why, especially because the law mandating the release of these files does not allow redactions on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. I mean, the whole reason so many people have demanded the release of these files was to expose the people who participated in Epstein's crimes without consequence. And there may be even more information on potential co-conspirators that the Justice Department is still holding on to. I mean, another email that appears to be from a federal prosecutor in New York reveals the existence of a 7-page memo on, quote, co-conspirators we could potentially charge. The email also mentions an apparently updated 86-page co-conspirator memo that appears to have been drafted later in 2019, as well as a corporate prosecution memo that is 13 pages. And to be clear, we don't know why that email was drafted. But so far, it does not appear that any of these memos have been released by the Justice Department. And again, exposing potential co-conspirators is a big reason that Epstein survivors have been fighting to release these files. This is not just a story about what Donald Trump did or didn't know. I mean, of course, that's important. He's the president of the United States right now. But it is about a much larger cover-up.
They're just so bad at this. They're just so bad at this. And it's almost as if they want to bring attention. I think it's one of those things where Donald Trump has become so consumed by his Epstein scandal that he really doesn't know what to do with himself. And he's just lashing out whenever his back is up against the wall. It always makes things that much worse. And as my dad always says, haste makes waste. And the DOJ is certainly moving hastily right now. Trump feels that. And it's why he put out this post about the Epstein files that a survivor responded to. And it's kind of giving away the game in a way that Elon certainly did, as we will get into. So after Donald Trump's crazy Christmas, Epstein posts saying that many sleazebags like to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein and party with him. An Epstein survivor tweeted, "Every accusation is a confession. Cheers." Donald Trump is just incriminating himself on the daily. But it's not the only example of how this administration has given away information on the first release of the Epstein files. The first. Now, of course, not complete release of the Epstein files that we saw earlier last week. It was clear that the DOJ didn't fully look through everything, right? There were photos of Trump. They forgot to redact his name. But it wasn't just that. The blacked out documents weren't actually blacked out, and there is a reason for that. that relates to Elon Musk. That is incredibly embarrassing for Trump in this administration and a huge bombshell on their failed cover. Anonymous posted the Epstein files on the DOJ website. Allow you to highlight the redacted text, copy it, and paste it into another document, which reveals what was hidden. You can also press Ctrl+F and search for Trump with a space to see his name appear more than 600 times. One Twitter user, quote, tweeting Redline News, which wrote Doge cancelled a contract for Adobe Acrobat, wrote, "It turns out being able to copy and paste blacked out portions of the Epstein files into a notepad to reveal that it's just color block text has a very publicly available and obvious root cause." Another Twitter user wrote Elon cancelling the Adobe Pro subscriptions of the entire federal government, and that resulting in the entire Epstein files getting accidentally released, fully unredacted because his real redaction is a pro feature. Sure, sums up 2025 nicely. Great year, everyone. Good work. 11 out of 10. So Donald Trump doxed himself into an accidental release of the Epstein files. Like, I can't even at this point. The incompetence is crazy. It is off the charts just how dumb these people are. Again, it's like they want us to know. It's like Trump is lighting his rat's nest hair on fire and demanding we look at him as he holds a picture of himself and Epstein. It is just the most obvious thing that you have possibly seen. And I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I think y'all know, and I keep saying this, I don't think it's conspiratorial to ask any questions at this point, considering how many of the questions we've asked have actually turned out to be valid. And the answer is yes. Donald Trump did all of those things. But sometimes I wonder, do they want us so focused on the cover-up of this administration that we don't ask questions about the cover-up in the first administration, questions about Jeffrey Epstein's death? I think back on those two files. I believe it was on the 23rd that were released by the DOJ and then redacted. Let's think about those two files. The first was a letter from Epstein saying that he would be taking his own life, and that was not sent. Was it right? It is the Epstein file that said, I'm taking my own life and Donald Trump is a pedo as well. Letter wasn't sent, and then they claimed it to be fake. Still in the files, right? What was the other file that they put out? And then they decided to redact. Well, it was a fake video, we covered it. We knew it was fake. It was AI generated. It came out in 2020. But what was it of Epstein looking like he was going to take his own life and his prison cell? So these two big stories that, again, let's think about the strays and effect here. If you're going to make sure that nobody sees something probably going to bring more attention to it. And so, they put out these posts, they put out these files, this video, and this letter. And then they deleted it. And then both of those files, right? Both of those stories contained information about Epstein saying he wanted to take his own life, kind of firming up that point. Why would we challenge that idea? Why he said he was gonna do it? Here's a video of him doing it. Just kind of wanting to keep it fresh in our minds. And that's the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. I don't want to get too conspiratorial again. I don't think that it is. But it just seems like, above all else, this DOJ that has failed to cover up has done so in a way that has kept a lot of people, and maybe we wouldn't have anyways, from asking questions about what happened in the first administration, or what happened in Epstein's cell, or what the government knows, or what they're hiding, or what documents they have on that. Because the Epstein files isn't just Jeffrey Epstein's life in the 90s and in the early 2000s. There's a lot to know about what happened in that prison, why that camera went out. Remember that missing minute? We didn't get a lot of updates on that missing minute now, did we? Jeffrey Epstein's own brother believed that Trump and Bill Barr, who had connections to Epstein, Bill Barr did, but they were involved. Jeffrey Epstein's own brother said that this is the same guy who's saying that there was a mass redaction plan, and has that turned out to be true? Of course, it has cover-up in mass. So he was right about that. I feel like you gotta trust the guy a little bit again. I don't want to get too conspiratorial. I don't feel like that is... I feel like these are just raising issues and saying that we should talk about these things more. But I want more answers. And so does Rokana. That's what he was saying right here.
The survivors have told me that they told the FBI about these names. The survivors' lawyers were in those FBI interview memorandum. None of them have come out. They're all required to come out by law. And you see now the Justice Department backpedaling and really scrambling. They did not anticipate that MAGA would be so upset with the impartial release.
The 10 co-conspirators really stuck out to me. We saw Leader Schumer also call that out. Oh, let's give you a moment there. We'll give him a moment to come back to get his headpiece.
All right, there you go.
It's all right.
Thank you.
It's a Christmas Eve.
Yes.
All sorts of things happen. And we'll give you a moment. I just was saying that it really stuck out to me, the 10 co-conspirators. It also stuck out to Leader Schumer, clearly stuck out to you. We don't know who the majority of these people are. Let me just start by asking you this. In the law that you wrote, is there anything that would require the redaction of these individuals from what was released?
No, quite the contrary. When Massey and I wrote the law, it's a 2-page law, we actually said that you cannot consider reputational harm. You cannot consider embarrassment. You cannot consider the fact that someone was not charged. And what we see is that the Department of Justice, frankly, and this is not exaggeration, is more concerned about hurting the reputation of the rich and powerful men who abused the survivors than they are protecting the survivors. When it came to the survivors, they've released the names. In one case, a survivor's name was released in a horrible way. And she then asked why the FBI file which she was mentioned in was not released. They didn't release the file she's mentioned in, though she's requesting it, and they released her name.
It is not in any way conspiratorial to not trust the least transparent administration in history. Let's make that clear. That is why we have to continue to ask questions, continue to call them out, and we are going to on this show. And if you want to support, that is always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. Happy New Year soon to be. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. And until next time, I'll see you soon.